section of the Torah, which is actually a big section, that starts to talk about the construction of the Mishkan, the construction, and then goes into all of the different kelim, all the different vessels that were used in the Mishkan, and then also the vestments, the garments that were worn by the Kohanim. And so these two Parshiot, Terumah Tetzaveh, are the Parshiot where we get the commandment to do so. And then we'll have Vayakel Pekudei, and over there, then we're going to get the actual the execution of these commandments. So, with that being said, we'll jump right in. The Parsha begins with, it says, Vayikhu li terumah et kol asher ish asher yedavenu libo tikhu et terumati. That take for me terumah, take for me a donation from each person, from each man that wants to give with his heart. Tikhu et terumati, take my donation. So we'll dive into this pasuk, and we'll learn B'ezrat Hashem this pasuk, because this pasuk has a lot of different practical lessons that we can take in our lives. The main theme that we'll talk about tonight, and that is presented from this pasuk, is the theme of tzedakah, charity. As we know that Hashem is saying over here that that you should take from me for charity. And we learn a great lesson from how he says it. It says, Vayikhu li terumah, you should take for me terumah, tikhu et terumati, take my terumah. We learn from this that a person thinks that they have money in this world, and that they are the ones that are making the money. A person thinks that he goes to work from 9 to 5. Who's the one giving the money? Maybe you can say the boss. But at the end of the day, who's the one giving him the money? In actuality, it's of course Hashem. Hashem's the one providing. The person does his hishtadlut. He does what he needs to do to go throughout the day, to go through the actions, so to say. But the one who's providing the providence, the sustenance, the money, that is Hashem. Hashem is the one that is relaying all of the money. One time, a little girl, maybe 4 or 5, asked her father, Abba, where do you get your money from? And so he was astounded. He was like, what do you mean, where do I get my money from? I go to work, and then when I go to work, the boss gives me my money. And she asked, and who gives him the money? And he said, his boss. And she said, then who gives him the money? And he says, when the manager, and they're getting all the money from the people give them the money from when they buy all the stores, when they buy from the stores and everything. And so she kept asking and asking and asking, and then at one point he said, Hashem. And so she said, if Hashem's giving you the money, is giving him the money and giving everyone the money, then why do you go to work? And so he said, if it was easy, and then Hashem was giving everyone, then I wouldn't have to go to work. But Hashem has to go through these different people, has to give through these different people for me to get my money. Meaning, you're right. At the end of the day, Hashem is the one giving the money. But we have to go through different avenues on how we get that money. Nonetheless, though, we have to have that in the back of our minds, that who's the one giving us the money? It's Hashem. And that's what Hashem is saying here. Vayikhu li terumah. Right? Give for me terumah, from your money, your donations. But who's that donation? It's terumati. It's my terumah. It's my money at the end of the day. A person, when he comes to synagogue, sometimes you see people and they want to get charity, and they ask you, can you give me charity? And a person sometimes he's a little stingy. He doesn't want to give. He says, "Who are you?" But we have to realize that Hashem's the one giving us the money. Really, the money that we have is merely a pikadon. It's a security. What we have in our possession isn't necessarily ours. It's what Hashem has given us for a certain amount of time, and you can go ahead and use it for charity, or you'll lose it somewhere else. There's a story in the Gemara that it says that one of the Tanaim, he had a dream at Rosh Hashanah that these his nephews would lose $1,000 that year. And so he went to go to the nephews. He told them, listen, you guys should donate extra this year. Donate extra, whatever you donated last year, triple it, double it, quadruple it. Donate a lot this year. And so they donated a lot. And at the end of the year, they came to they realized they donated $930. And they went to go tell their uncle, listen, hey, we donated so much. On the way, they got stopped by one of these tax inspectors, and that were working for the government. And the guy said, listen, hey, you guys are embezzling. And I said, what? We're not embezzling. We're not doing anything. What do you want from us? We're honest, hardworking citizens. He said, okay, then you have to pay your taxes. Taxes. Our accountant said we're good. No, you have to pay taxes to the government. He had like a letter. You owe $70 to taxes. Okay, $70. They paid $70. So they finally got to their uncle. They said, hey, uncle, we did it. We gave a lot of tzedakah this year. We gave $930 to tzedakah. And he said, what about the 70? I said, what do you mean? What about the 70? How do you know about the 70? We just gave 70 to a guy working for the government. He said that 70 was also supposed to go to tzedakah, but you didn't give it to tzedakah, so it got lost somewhere else. So you either have the ability to use the money that you have and put it to tzedakah, and then you get a merit, you get a mitzvah out of it, or you're going to lose that money in a way that's not beneficial for you, and it's not beneficial for anyone. It goes to like the government, or you pay taxes, or if chas v'shalom there's an accident and someone else needs to go to the hospital, things like that, where Hashem makes it so that you're going to lose the money. Now, how are you going to lose it? Are you going to do a mitzvah with it? Are you going to give tzedakah? Or are you going to lose it in a different manner in that you cannot recover it both physically and, of course, spiritually? Rashi, very interestingly, he says, Vayikhu Terumah. Rashi says, Li lishmi, me for my name. And usually, very simply understood, is that when you give tzedakah, you should give so wholeheartedly. You shouldn't do so for ulterior motives. The highest form of tzedakah, of course, is giving for no return, even for no mitzvah. You don't want any mitzvah. The Rambam brings a bunch of different levels of actually giving tzedakah. He says the highest level of giving tzedakah is loaning to a poor person, or getting to hiring them. A person, the Rambam brings an example. A person, and let's call him Reuven, right? He has logs at the back of his house. So he sees a poor person, he wants to give him tzedakah, but if you give a person tzedakah, a poor person, they feel bad about themselves. They say, hey, I just don't want to accept it. Then he's never going to walk down that street again because he might bump into him again. So the Rambam says, what's the best thing to do? Hire them. Why? Now Reuben's going to say, hey, come look, I have logs in the back of my yard. Can you move them to the front of my yard? For sure. How much? I'm not going to do it for free. Yeah, no, for free. I'll give you $30 an hour. That sounds good. Sounds great. I have no other means of getting paid. So it takes him 2 hours. He moves all the logs to the front of the yard. Reuven comes out. He says, oh, amazing. Here, have a glass of water. Sorry to tell you, but actually, can you move them back to the backyard? I don't like them in the front yard anymore. He says, this guy's crazy, but you're going to pay me? Yeah, same rate. Fine. He goes again, another 2 hours, moves it back to the backyard. He's up to 4 hours now. And it comes out, Reuven says, oh, you're doing an amazing job. One problem, my wife doesn't want it in the backyard anymore. Do you mind moving it back to the front yard? This guy's saying, oh my gosh, this what did I land on? But you're going to charge the same rate? Same rate, don't worry. Okay. Moves everything to the front yard. Suddenly he comes out. He says, oh, you're amazing worker. You already did this. You didn't complain. Nothing. I'm going to give you a bonus. Is that bonus? Yeah, I'll give you a bonus, $100 bonus. So he pays him for the 6 hours plus, so he gives a bonus, and he feels good about himself. He feels like he's done work. even though really, what did he do? He didn't do anything. He moved it back and forth and back and forth. And the guy feels good about himself, though, and he doesn't feel, now he's not going to come back and see and hide away from this man. He's going to feel great. That's the highest level of Terumah. That's the highest level of giving tzedakah, that you can make a person feel that he's accomplished something, even though really he hasn't accomplished anything for you. The second level of tzedakah that Rambam brings is that if you, for example, if you give to, let's say, the rabbi, and the rabbi knows that a family is in need, so he gives it to that family. But that family doesn't know who it came from, and the person giving doesn't know who it went to. So it's a double anonymous. The person receiving it doesn't know who it was from, and the person giving it doesn't know where it went to. And so in that way, a person doesn't feel better than any other person, because he doesn't know who he's giving it to. And that way, he's not going to see the person and think, he's a poor person, I feel bad for them. He doesn't know who it is. And on the opposite side also, the person getting the money, he doesn't know who gave it to him, so he doesn't feel embarrassed if he sees him in public. The third highest would be a person giving to someone, and that person does not know who it was. The Gemara relates that there was a story of this, where I believe it was Mar Ukva. He used to give tzedakah to a poor person, leave it on their doormat, and then hide in the bushes until he saw that he got it. So the first day, the guy comes out. He says, "Oh, Hashem, thank you for answering my blessings. I got the coin. Now I can buy dinner. Now I can provide for my wife and children. Amazing." The next day he comes out. Wow, this is unbelievable. This is like the man. Every day I come out and there's money. Third day he comes out. He starts to think, this is not a coincidence. 3 times is not a coincidence. Someone's probably giving me money. So he's starting to get curious. 4th day, again he's like, okay, who's the one that knows that I'm in situation? Who's the one giving me? I want to thank them. This and that. 5th day, he said, okay, no, that's it. I'm gonna stake out my yard until we see who's giving me the money. So he hides in the bushes. Well, I guess the different bushes than Marok jumps into, and he's waiting, and then suddenly he hears rustling, so he turns around, and then he sees someone quickly putting the money down. He doesn't get to see who it is, and he starts running. So the man who was the poor person, starts chasing after Mar Ukva. And Mar Ukva sees that this guy's running after him. They're starting to sprint. Mar Ukva starts to run, and he doesn't know where to go. Suddenly he sees his wife. He says, "Open up the oven." He said they open up the oven. Him and his wife both jump into the oven. And then the guy looking around, I guess they jumped in before he can come into the house. He's looking around. Okay, no one home. He's not going to check inside the oven, He's not thinking anyone's crazy enough to do that. Now, Baruch Hashem, they were both okay. The oven was on, it was hot, and but they both came out okay. The Gemara brings down, though, that the clothes of Mar Ukva was singed, whereas his wife's clothes weren't singed. And they asked, why was his clothes singed and his wife's clothes not singed? And they said, because when he gives tzedakah, he gives money. A man usually gives money. So the money goes to the poor person, and then he has to go to the store, he has to buy food, come back, and then give it to his family. Whereas a woman, back then at least, when they gave tzedakah, they would give food. A poor person comes to your door, or they sometimes go to the marketplace. So they give them a sandwich, or they give them some food. So the enjoyment, the pleasure that they get is immediate. Whereas if someone gets money, they have to go now to the store or get whatever they need. And so because they were able to get that enjoyment in a more speedy manner, she merited not to even have her clothes singed. Whereas Mar Ukva, because he made them, I guess, do a little bit more extra steps in order to get that pleasure, his clothes were singed. So the Rab Chaim Vital, the student of the Arizal, he explains, what is Vaikhuli Terumah? What does it mean, Li Shmi, and me for my name? He says that every time that you give tzedakah, you're actually manifesting Hashem in this world. What does that mean? That means that if you give tzedakah, that you're bringing this power of Hashem into this world and writing out His name through actions. And he explains. He says that the coin someone gives, or the money that someone gives, usually it's a little dot, it's something very small, that corresponds to the yud of Hashem's name. And he puts it into his hand, which is 5 fingers, corresponding to the hey, which is 5. He puts it into his hand, and then he goes to the poor person. The poor person stretches out their arm. That's like a vav. And then he opens up his hand. The poor person opens up his hand, and that's another 5 fingers, which corresponds to the hey. So you got the yud, the coin, the hey, the person who's giving the tzedakah's hand, the vav, the arm of the poor person, and hey, the poor person's hand. And so you're manifesting it, you're making Hashem's name into this world, Yud Hey Vav Hey. So that's what he explains, Vayikuli Terumah Li Shmi, for my name, that when someone gives tzedakah, he's bringing these energies of tzedakah into this world, and he's writing out Hashem's name. Now, Rav Chaim Vital says, when does this happen though? When the rich person, or the person who has money, goes and gives it to the poor person, because he's causing the poor person to outstretch his hand. But if the poor person comes beforehand and outstretches his hand and asks for the tzedakah, then it's a little opposite. It's vav, hey, and then the rich person comes and gives the tzedakah, yud, hey. That spells vehaya. And so he says that corresponds to the pasuk, vehaya ma'aseh hatzedakah shalom. And it was the act of tzedakah brought peace. And he says that if someone does that, it's still a good thing. It brings peace, but it's not as great, because you're not bringing Hashem's name in the correct manner, Yud Hey and Vav Hey. So a person should always, if you see someone in the synagogue or in the streets that they need tzedakah, that they need help, and you see them and they're asking other people, don't wait for him to ask you. Go and tell him. That way you can give him. That way you can create this manifestation of Hashem's name in this world, a Yud Hey and a Vav and a Hey. The Arizal also says that all of the sins of a person are generally written on his forehead, and also the mitzvot. The mitzvot are also the good things that a person does is written on their forehead. There's a story that the Rav Rabbeinu Moshe Galanti, he was one of these also Mekubalim, also a Kabbalist. He was in the same generation of Rabbeinu Ari. He also lived in Tzfat, and one time he was the Av Beit Din. He was the head of the din of the Beit Din, of the court, of the Jewish court in Tzfat at that time. And so one time he came to the Arizal, and the Arizal stood for him, gave him honor. He said, "Oh, what is the rabbi doing here?" And the Moshe Galanti, the Av Beit Din, he said, "Me, you're the rabbi. I came to ask you for something." The Ari said, "Okay, what do you want? What can I help you with?" He said, "Listen, I heard you can read foreheads, so read my forehead. Tell me what sin I've committed." So the Arizal said, "No, I can't do that. You're the Av Beit Din. It's not kavod. It's not honorable. I can't do that." And he said, "No, I'm telling you, you have to do it. I need to know." He said, "Oh, okay, fine. I'll tell you." Looks at his forehead. Says, "You're a thief." And the Harav Moshe Galanti got shocked. He almost fainted. He said, "Me, a thief?" He says, Arizal says, "I don't know. That's what it's written on your forehead." He was out of himself. He was so down, upset, couldn't think. He got home. Suddenly he sees that in his house he has workers. People doing working and stuff. So he collects everyone, the people doing laundry, people doing the cleaning. He collects everyone and he says, "Listen, if you believe that I haven't paid you the right amount, tell me now." And no one says anything, of course. Takes out a bunch of money, puts it on the table, if you believe that you have not been compensated correctly, take money. I'm not going to be looking. And he closes his eyes, he gets out of the room, and he comes back and he sees some of the money was taken. So he says, I just want to know, you don't have to tell me, but please, if you would, who's the one that felt undercompensated? There was one widowed woman, rose her hand. She said, listen, I'm one of the weavers here, and I feel that I am working harder than the other weavers. And he started crying. He said, wow, I didn't realize that I was underpaying you. From now on, I'm going to give you the right sum of money that you deserve. He went back to the Arizal, and the Arizal said, yep, now it's gone. You're good. You're clean. You don't have the thief on your forehead anymore. But the Arizal brings down that when we do mitzvot, every time that we do a mitzvah, then the sign on the forehead gets changed to the mitzvah that you just did. So when you wake up in the morning, you put on a tzitzit, then it says tzitzit. You put on tefillin, it says tefillin. When you help your parents or something, kibud ava'em. Right? He says there's one mitzvah that if you do, it's not erased the whole day. What's that mitzvah? That's tzedakah. If someone does tzedakah, if someone gives charity, that is on his forehead. It's I guess on the side, but it shows throughout the whole day. And so he said that a person should always strive. One of the first things to do in the morning or before praying is to give tzedakah. That way, that when you come to pray, when we're praying, we're coming before Hashem. Hashem, of course, can read the foreheads. He sees on the forehead that we have the mitzvah of tzedakah, and nothing will erase that of the day. So there are when it says veikhu li terumah, we need to realize that li is also very when we're saying li, it means of course Hashem, right? And li is also, if you look at it, it's the first and last letter in Israel. Israel, the name of Israel, the first letter is Lamed, or Yud, and the last letter is Lamed. So when you're saying Vaikhu li terumah, he's saying that, again, you think that your money is your money, you're Israel, right? But remember, who's the first and the last? That's li, that's a me. And then what's in the middle? Rosh, right? So even though you might think that you're the Rosh, but remember, all at the end of the day, the money is always coming back to me. It's li. The sages bring down that another interpretation of Rashi's Vaikhu li terumah li lishmi, for my namesake, is that there's the passage of the Isha Sota, of the wayward woman, is juxtaposed to the passages of giving the Kohanim one of their Kohanic gifts. And so they ask, why is that? Why is it juxtaposed? Why suddenly, after talking about giving the Kohanim their gifts, then you go into the passage of the Isha Sota, the wayward woman? And so the sages said that the reason that it is juxtaposed is that if someone does not, Rashi I think says over there, that if someone does not give the Kohanic gifts to the Kohanim, then he's going to need the Kohen for something that he hasn't done. Meaning, if a person isn't going to go give charity to the Kohanim, giving what they need to the charity, then he's going to have to bring his wife, the wayward woman, to the Kohen, in order for them to be for her to have the din, have the judgments on her. And the Gaon of Vilna brings a whole story on how it's connected. He says that the pasuk says v'ish et kadashav lo yu, that it says that ish it says so it says that if a person does not, he withholds money from Terumah. First, it says Terumah and Maserot should be going to the Kohanim. If a person withholds that, he doesn't give it to the Kohanim. So the Gaon Vilna gives a whole story. He says that this person, he gets cursed. And then what happens? He starts to lose his wealth. And then once he starts losing his wealth, what happens? Well, you need to get money somehow because the wife is asking for more money. She wants to live the same high standard that she lived. So he has to start going into risky business, doing shady business, and sometimes it doesn't go through. And he tells his wife, listen, I can't meet what you're expecting. You're living a little bit too high of a class. So if she doesn't get what she needs from him, so she starts looking outward. And she starts meeting other people. And next thing you know, his friend said, hey, I saw your wife secluding herself with another man. And he said, what? How can that be? Suddenly he confronts her. He said, listen, you cannot seclude yourself again with that man. If you do, well, we'll have to go to Jerusalem. And lo and behold, she again is seen secluding herself with that man. So he says, listen, we're going to Jerusalem. They go to Jerusalem, and who's the one to give her the test of whether she did commit the act or not? The Kohanim. Hashem says, you could have fixed all of this, right? You didn't have to. You could have circumvented all of this if you just gave the Terumah, the Maaserot, the Kohanic gifts. Why did you have to go through that? And worse is when they administer the test of the Sotah. What do? They take a cloth, they take a paper that has Hashem's name on it and put it inside water for her to drink. Hashem said, listen, you erased my name because you didn't give Terumah, you didn't give Maaserot, you didn't give Tzedakah. So when he says, for my name, Li Lishmi, Rashi says, for me, for my name, he's saying that you erased my name because you didn't want to give Tzedakah. Thank you. The tzaddikim, they said that usually we read this parsha Terumah in the times around the Machatzit shekel, as we talked about, and in fact they learn from the opening of this parsha. It says 3 times Terumah. So it's very cool. Terumah. It says Terumati, and it says another time it says another time for Terumah. So there's 3 times that it says in Terumah in this parsha, and it says those are connected. Those are corresponding to the three machatzita shekels, the 3 half shekels that were given throughout the year for the communal needs. And as we mentioned, that we said that the machatzita shekel is gematria nefesh, meaning the numerical value of shekel is nefesh, is soul. And when someone gives machatzita shekel, he's also doing kapara, he's also atoning for his soul. The pasuk says, tzedakah tatzil mimavet, that giving tzedakah saves a person from death. And it's a midah keneged midah. If you give a person tzedakah, if you give a person money, you're ensuring that he's not dying because he's not going to go hungry. So Hashem says, you didn't make him die, so I'm not going to let you die. Midah keneged midah. The sages say, though, it's a little deeper than that. You see, if you take machatzit, right, the word machatzit, it starts with a mem. Then it says it has a chet, and then it has a tzadik, and then yud, and then taf. The tzaddikim say, if you take the first letter and the last letter, mem and taf, it's met, means death, right? So when someone has a death sentence on their head, and they want to change it from death to life, so then we go to the next letter. What's the next letter? Chet, and before the taf is a yud, chai. That's chai, that's life. How do we do that? That's through the tzaddik, that's through the tzedakah. So if someone is able to give tzedakah, and specifically when we're talking about machatzita shekel, that we said it's for atonement, if it's for a person, he's able to change that machatzit from the met, he's able to change from met to chai, from death to life. And that's what the pasuk says. Tzedakah tatzil mimavet. That through the tzedakah you will be saved from death. And so the sages say that also when it says that 3 times terumah, it says ve'ikhu terumah, tikhu et terumah, v'zot terumah. Those also correspond to the 3 types of levels of giving. There's someone who gives, and they give out of the kindness of their heart, and that's why it says ve'ikhu terumah, that they give without being provoked. They come to give, but they don't expect anything in return, and they don't anticipate any good coming out of it. They give because they know they need to give, and that's that. There's another type of people that sometimes they give because of something that happened. They have a court case coming up, or that they have a doctor's visit, or they start feeling pain. Whatever it may be, at that point, they feel that, okay, I need to give tzedakah. Maybe that will help my turn the favor for my favor. And then there's a third type of group that they say, leave me alone with the tzedakah business. I'll give tzedakah when I pass away. I'll put a bank account and I'll have the tzedakah fund, and I'll let that go for when I pass away. And so those correspond to the 3 levels. Of course, we want to make sure that we're striving to be that first level of giving tzedakah without any ulterior motives, without any outside pressure. And b'zchut that, as we said, tzedakah tatzil mimavet, that tzedakah will save a person from death. The Gemara also says in Masechet Tanit, aser te'aser, aser b'shvil tit'ashir, that if a person gives tzedakah, not only will he be saved from any perils, he'll also merit riches. A person will get rich from giving tzedakah. And Hashem says, this is the one mitzvah that you're allowed to test me in. If you give tzedakah, you will see it's an investment. You think you're losing money? No, the opposite. You're going to be gaining more money. So, b'zchut this parsha, and b'zchut the merit of what we learned tonight, we'll feel more giving in the giving mood, and we'll give tzedakah, and through that merit, we'll be able to once again give the machatzit shekel in the Beit HaMikdash. Thank you all. Is there any